Well, it is promise fulfilled. It's the D-Day as we have our maiden news bulletin, Select News here on Ace TV. My name is Elijah Tudiagmanawe, and I'll be taking you through this road together with my colleague.
My name is Latifa Hamid, and welcome to Select News at 9. Let's look at the headlines, and we'll be right back.
In the headlines tonight, SEDU calls for Electoral Commission and Parliament's intervention into the NRM party primaries. Schools set to reopen as Ministry of Health sets fresh standard operating procedures. Torrential rains paralyze business as floods block commution. Torrential rains paralyze business as floods block commution. More in the news, we'll look at the Electoral Commission preparedness ahead of 2021 general polls. Well, from the headlines, we shall now be delving into the details of the top stories that we have tonight. And top on our stories, Citizen Coalition for Electoral Democracy Uganda has called upon the Electoral Commission and Parliament to address malpractices and violence of the National Resistance Movement Party NRM members following their recently concluded primaries countrywide.
Now, according to SEDU, the already concluded NRM primaries pose a threat to the 2021 general elections that are coming up.
NRA party primaries, it was uncalled for. We don't support it. We really condemn it.
The NRM primaries recently held in the different parts of the country involved killings, with some people getting badly injured. This has highly been condemned by SEDU, saying that it should be prohibited at any point in time in Uganda's politics. SEDU has asked the concerned parties to punish all members that were involved.
It is being condemned by us. We really don't support it. If you look at the Monday press release that we had, and it is actually against the Supreme Court petition on the amendment of certain rules and procedures governing elections in Uganda. We as SEDU, we call upon all stakeholders in an election to really attend to these kind of guidelines.
Even though it's not the role of Electoral Commission to conduct party primaries, it's their role to closely watch over malpractices and election irregularities during party primaries, as Alvin Mutebi, a researcher at SEDU, states.
We really want to bring it to the attention of the Electoral Commission to also look at this kind of violence acts that happened in party primaries. However, the Electoral Commission is not mandated to organize party primaries, but it is supposed to watch, because what we saw in the NRM primaries might occur in the general elections. They
add that the situation has been analyzed and SEDU has put on board an informative strategy to curb such acts in the next general elections. We
have preparations to launch quite a number of campaigns to educate people about the manner in which this election is going to be conducted, because majority of the people don't know the manner in which elections are going to be conducted in Uganda. And we saw it, it was evident in the NRM primary. So have a campaign on a peaceful election, whereby we are sensitizing generally youth and women to enable them participate in this election peacefully.
However, they urge other political parties known to fall culprits of the same and also continue abiding by the SOPs of COVID-19 in all their activities. Shamira Nagawa, Select News.
Politicians have expressed concerns about unequal media access and police brutality coupled with election violence as the country looks forward to the 2021 general polls.
Now, Simon Chris Makanga is on standby with Paul Bukenya, the Public Relations Officer of Electoral Commission, as they guide us in understanding the roadmap of the 2021 general elections.
Now, Simon Chris Makanga is right now at the Electoral Commission, and we're going to be engaging him on quite a number of issues. Simon Chris Makanga is going to be coming live to give us the details and the nitty-gritties of what transpired in the National Resistance Movement Party primaries and what irregularities that the country has witnessed, what the Electoral Commission thinks, and will these irregularities set pace and the benchmark come 2021. Simon Chris Makanga, if you can hear me out there, you'll be joining us. Give us the details if you can hear me out there. Give us the details of the Electoral Commission. I understand you're going to be engaging Paul Bukenya, the Public Relations Officer at the Electoral Commission. So I would expect you to ask him questions around the area of digital campaigns, in the era of the COVID-19. How ready is Uganda to conduct a digital campaign, but also ultimately an election that is digital? Are the grounds leveled? Simon Chris Makanga.
Manawe and Latif Ahmed. Indeed, you haven't lied. I'm coming live from the Electoral Commission, and with me, I do have the Public Relations Officer, Mr. Paul Bukenya. I think he's been serving this office for the last 2 months after the President of Uganda, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, bragging recently that he dismissed the 8 officials from the Electoral Commission, and among the 8 officials was the former Public Relations Officer, Mr. Jotham Tarema. Mr. Paul Bukenya, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, and good evening to our viewers out there, yes.
It is a pleasure to have you with us, and one would wonder, we just had the recently concluded NRM primaries and the special interest group elections, whereby the youth elections turned out to be chaotic in your presence, at your watch. Ugandans want to know, what is your comment on that?
Well, we can't say that youth elections were really chaotic. We've analyzed everything that took place during the youth elections at the village level, where we had 68,740 villages participating, and then reports coming in with countrywide, the villages that were not able to have their elections being fewer than even 100 across from all that. So I think what we saw were some cases of violent conduct and riotous behavior at some polling stations, especially in urban areas, for which we, addressed. We addressed those issues. They were able to have their elections the following day, and then we concluded those elections. So at parish level, we similarly had a very, very fairly peaceful exercises. We have 10,027 parishes across the country. So if we looked at the general picture of how the special interest groups elections are conducted, especially youth, not looking at persons with disabilities and other persons, we can call it a very successful exercise, which just had those isolated cases of violent conduct or riotous behavior.
Looking at the chaos and the violence that was witnessed in the NRM primaries, what lessons do you learn? And Ugandans want to know, are you ready to organize a free and fair elections come 2021? Because they say if NRM primaries were that chaotic, what exactly is going to happen in the coming general elections?
Yeah, like I mentioned, of course we have lessons to learn from the chaotic behavior we saw in the village youth elections and later on at sub-county. Even if they were isolated cases, they still gave us some lessons, and there are gaps to close and issues to address in preparations for the general elections in 2021. And then, of course, when it comes to the primaries is certainly an area that we are still, assessing, but there are reports already that we've looked at, and even media reports that we've looked at, and things that we are looking at. I'm glad to say that it's good that the acts of violence that we saw in these elections have been condemned widely within the party leadership, for example. And I know that even the police took action in some cases. We have seen people arrested and already brought to courts of law. And so we also condemn it. We condemn that because elections are not supposed to be a battleground where, there are fists and people live with bloody noses and broken limbs and all that. So this is an area we need to bring to the limelight, to highlight it in our vote education, in our stakeholder engagement meetings, as we deal with the public, to tell them that elections are not, you don't end your life with these elections. Yes, involve in elections in a peaceful manner. So we have guidelines that bring or rather call stakeholders to order and a code of conduct. And of course, conduct like that can be prosecuted because it's an election offense.
One of the reasons that triggered chaos in the youth elections was their names were missing on the voters register, and you concluded you concluded admission or verifying voters register on the 11th of December last year. People turn 18 every single day. What are you doing about that?
Yeah, one of the reasons why we had some chaotic, behavior and riotous conduct during the special interest groups elections, especially youth, was the claims that my name is missing on the register and that I'm a young man, I'm 19 years old, and all that. But being a young man and a resident of a village is not enough. You must have been registered on the village voters register, which process we conducted. Actually, we concluded on December 23rd, because the cutoff is in our law. We'll cut off and then you produce a register which you use in elections. You can't go into elections without knowing the number of registered voters. That's why we create a cutoff, so that we know that by this date, just like there's a census night where they say, as of this date, there's so many Ugandans. A Ugandan is born every day, and the Ugandan dies every day, So in the same way, on our register, we have a cutoff date, and that explains why. So I think we need to engage stakeholders more, which is what we are doing, to appreciate that when there's a cutoff date, respect it. You're not a registered voter. You're a youth, yes, but you're not a registered voter.
Well, your independence has been subjected to judgment because you initially gave a roadmap to 2021 general elections, and you said that campaigns are going to be done on radio stations and other media and consultations. We have seen the NRM party holding processions in the protection of the police, and the opposition has been tear gassed, and also live bullets have also come out. As the commission, how far do you go?
Our standard operating procedures for purposes of these elections apply to us all, whether irrespective of which party. And I would like to give a simple message to Ugandans. Don't join a procession just because you've not been, warned or called to order. Just because a procession has somewhere managed to form and you join it. This is about your life, okay? So irrespective of your political shade, the standard operating procedures concern life. And we know we've taken this to police, which is the enforcement agency, to protect the lives of Ugandans, because this is not just about I'm able to somehow manage to avoid the police, so let's form a procession. No, because at the end of it, you may not be able to vote for the candidate you love so much because you're down, sick, or even dead. And in the same way, also, you need to protect the candidate because they may not get to the polling day. They will fall sick or even die. So yes, we've issued the standard operating procedures. They are in force, but also there are presidential directives and there are also guidance and guidelines by Ministry of Health. I think we need to do that because COVID-19 is real and it is with us, and we want safe participation in the electoral process. So we still send out the message: do not participate in mass public gatherings. This is a message that goes both to the candidates to protect their supporters and to the supporters to protect themselves and to protect their candidates. So our independence in no way compromised because we brought this message strongly to police. Next week we are doing stakeholder dialogue meetings. We are doing engagements with security structures and task forces to emphasize the message that we want safe participation in the elections.
Mr. Paul Bukenya, thank you so much for speaking to us. Elijah Tuliagumanawe and Latifa Ahmed, you heard it from the public relations officer, Mr. Paul Bukenya, assuring the nation that they are so much willing to conduct free and fair elections, and their independence is not anywhere to be subjected to any kind of judgment. Back to you, Elijah and Latifa Ahmed.
Well, thank you very much, Simon Chris Makanga, for that interesting report. We've all heard that if you're unregistered, you're not going to be able to vote in the 2021 general elections. Now, coming back into studios, Elijah, what do you think will happen come 2021 general elections? We have seen that the NRM primaries were very chaotic, and these were supposed to set a step for the 2021 general elections, and then we have the pandemic where numbers are rising. rising every day.
I'll be optimistic on this, Latifa. The fact that it's the ruling party, it holds a very significant sample study on what the 2021 general polls will look like, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we should run to a conclusion that it's exactly what the general elections will look like in terms of irregularities, looking at voter bribery, but also the violence that was marred into the elections. But right about now, Latifa, we should go for a very short break and continue with more news on Select News. Keep it STV, always.
Watching STV, select for fun.
Well, welcome back from that break, and thank you for staying with us until this moment. Now, as we continue with the stories that made it into our bulletin tonight, the territorial downpour that has graced the country from the start of November has had devastating effects, ranging from destructive floods, hailstorms, and destructive winds that have destroyed property, and in some parts, lives have been lost.
Now, in Kampala, the rains have flooded roads, putting transportation at a standstill. The situation has been brought to our screens by Edith Navagereka. Take a look.
Uganda has seen a wave of torrential rains throughout the month of September, likely to extend to November. In a country where 70% of its population depends on agriculture, the rains should have been a welcome change to the dry climate that had extended to August. However, these rains came with unwelcome destruction to roads and floods that have put business at a standstill. Speaking to the business community, property and roads have been destroyed by the heavy rains. According to the weather forecasts, the rains have just started and the country needs to brace itself for heavier downfalls. Genesis Namale, Edith Nabagereka, STV Select News.
Thank you very much for that report. We see that the rains that was supposed to be a blessing have become a curse. Well, now going into our next story, as schools are set to reopen in a fortnight, the Ministry of Education has set up guidelines together with the Ministry of Health that will be rolled out through a training that every student will undergo on reporting day.
Now, the standard operating procedures will include the infections and prevention control of the COVID-19 pandemic that has risen to 3,900 cases as of Tuesday. This has received mixed reactions, with experts warning against dangers of early opening of schools. Ramla Katumba has the details of this report.
Been resolved by the government that schools will be reopened on September 20th, members of the public have expressed mixed reaction towards the move.
Nawulidde ekya gavumenti kyegamba nti abaana bagenda kuddayo okusoma naye ng'ate bakandidenti bokka be bagenda okuddayo. Bakandidenti tulina banjawulo, tulinayo n'abatoopu nabo bakandidenti. Senga gavumenti egamba nti abaana baddeyo bakandidenti basome, kati guno omwaka ne bagenda abo, kati basemi candidate bagenda kukola batya?
In trying to ingest the move by the Ministry of Education, teachers have expressed confusion over enrollment of the edited syllabus.
Ng'abasomesa okweteekateeka over tubalwedde naye system eno atuyamba. One, twetaaga omwana agende mu P7 agenda tuula agende senior 1. Gavumenti etaddewo ki bano bino ebibiina ebirala nabyo okuseesetuka okuva mu bibiina biriko okugenda ebidde.
Candidates, on the other hand, are excited over the opening of schools, saying the education that was rolled out on televisions and radios did not work.
Ebyoku TV tosobola kubuuza, tosobola mugamba nti kino sikitegedde. Tosobola mubuuza nti kino sikitegedde kuba abaali ku TV, kale ate abazadde abamu tebalina zino essimu za smartphone nti oba amusindikira amubuuze.
Wetubeera ewaka bawala bannaffe bafuna obuzibu ewaka nga child labor n'okuba rapinga. Kati bwe tuddayo ku ssomero kijja tuyamba.
The others that we spoke to differed in opinion, with their fear being tuition that they say their parents will not be able to afford due to the prolonged lockdown that so many lose jobs.
Nga gavumenti eno tukwatiddeko ku baana bano badde bagenda okutuula. Abagenda okutuula senior 4 ne P7 kubanga olw'ensonga twakaddayo okukola.
The ministry has communicated a timeline that will see students end their second term in mid-December and kick off third term in late January or early February. The final exams are expected to be written in March or April. Husna Afet, Ramla Katumba, reporting for Select News.
Well, that story does remind me of my two young brothers who have been seated home and just eating food and sleeping. It's high time you started preparing because you'll be resuming school very soon. Now, moving on to the next story, Pastor Joseph Kakande. In Mukono district after a fight ensued between the two over land wrangles.
Well, the said land allegedly belongs to Waiswa, who was attacked by Pastor Kakande, who claims ownership of the land.
Now, Sechunga brings us the details to that story. Take a look.
By the time we arrived at the scene, those that were injured, including Pastor Joseph Kakande and Mr. Waso, had been rushed to the hospital for treatment. The locals explained the cause of all this.
Ndi mweraliikirivu ku bw'obulamu bw'abasumba bange okusingira ddala omusumba Joseph Kakande. Obulamu bwe buli mu matigga, yatuusibwako obulabe. Kyokka obuzibu obuliwo nti okutuusibwako obulabe ng'ekivudde okuyimirira ku mazima, okuyimirira ku kyayagala ekikye si mu bubi.
After our life, yeah, we really need security now. I don't really know what to do. They are waiting to kill us, and really those who were there told us not to pass there. Some informants will give us information.
According to the doctor from CPR Hospital, Pastor Joseph Kakande had suffered more injuries. However, the hospital is taking good care of him, though in great pain.
Pastor Kakande yasaliddwa ekiwundu kyamusaliddwa wano ku mutwe, kiwundu kyabadde ddi era kyali kibuliidinga nnyo, naye ekyomukisa omulungi nti akawanga tekatuukiddwako naye ne tukitunga, naye nga tumujjanjabe nga abugoberedde bulungi n'endabirira gye tunaamuwa ajja kubeera bulungi.
According to Chamba de Sam, one of the leaders in the area says these land wrangles have stayed for some time and the locals had failed to resolve the matter, thus referred them to the High Court.
Nebe nasangawo nga vice owekyalo kino alina n'ebiwandiiko ebiragana tuwano waliwo ki waliwo ekkubo kubanga ono yagula abantu bali bamirundi esatu waliwo simanyi yagula asooka naddako nezina akajja mu byokulembeze by'eŋŋandu naye baali bakaba banga abakulu bo babimanyi waliwo ki waliwo oluguudo.
However, Mukono police declined to comment on the matter. Simon Chris Makanga, Sechiwonga Hasif, STV Select News.
Been lost. Well, there we go. Thank you, Simon Chris Makanga and Hasif Sechiwunga, for that story all the way from Mukono.
Now, on that particular note, we shall go for a short break, and when we come back, we shall be looking at business, both in short and broader perspective. Keep it STV.
Hey guys, you're watching STV. Select for fun.
Abalamuzi babagamba nti if the incumbent president frustrates all democratic means to leave power, temusibayo muntu n'omu ku treason. This is why Besigye is released. Museveni ekibi kyalina talina mawulire. Nawandika n'ekitabo kyange, the role of which could have been a malicious society. Sapule njijjamu.
Noyingire sabo.
Katonda wa bujja. Nze Katonda w'obujja. Bw'oba olaga eri, sapule twekitwala. Omusajja omubbi bamujja ewuwe ewaka kabanga lyezi. Ne bamujja ewuwe ewaka yabadde mu ttooyi. Naye tebamukkiriza na tusanitize. Bamutadde butese mu piikaavu ba mu State House. Naye omukyayina bwe yawulidde nti ono bamukutte yeesize kiwi yayitiddeko yadduse ng'omuddugavu.
Hey guys, you're watching STV. Select for fun.
Well, welcome back from that break, and thank you for staying tuned on STV with Select News. Now we'll be going into the business section with Genesis. Hello, Genesis. How are you doing today? Oh, I'm wonderful.
Well, in the business sector, we do expect our business analyst, Genesis, to be looking at quite a number of issues, but for the corporate world, the small-scale businesses and economists, this is your time. Pay attention and stay glued. Genesis, we do understand that the UNRWA particularly came out and stated categorically that those buildings that have been sited in road reserves might get demolished. What details do you have for us?
Okay, thank you, Elijah. I'm going to start with that story. Before I go ahead, good morning and welcome to Select News at 8:45. I'm Genesis Namale and this is Business for You. Direct his ceremony, Kajina voiced her stern warning on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020, during UNRWA's signing of 3 contracts for the construction and rehabilitation of 3 major roads, Najanankumbi Busabala Road, Chirac Sangati Matuga Road, and Masaka City Roads. The construction will be funded by the Ugandan government through the National Road Development and Maintenance Program budget. Genesis Namale, Select News.
Good evening once again, and it is the business segment. The executive director of the Uganda National Roads Authority, Alan Kajina, warns that owners of the police facilities built on road reserves will be destroyed and not be compensated. The details.
Executive Director speaking direct on Tuesday's ceremony, Kajina voiced her stern warning on Tuesday, September 8, 2020, during UNRWA's signing of 3 contracts for the construction and rehabilitation of 3 major roads: Najanankumbi Busabala Road, Chirac Kasangati Matuga Road, and Masaka City Roads. The construction will be funded by the Ugandan government through the National Road Development and Maintenance Program budget. Genesis Namale, Select News.
Now, effective September 30th, 2020, the National Social Security Fund will shut down its branch located in Lugazi as the fund takes more client services online. Now, the affected savers from Lugazi branch will be merged with the branch in Mukono. The details.
In the last couple of years, NSSF has launched several online services that have helped reduce savers' journeys to brick and mortar branches. The Lugazi branch will be merged with the Mukono branch effective 30th September 2020. Affected members and employers can access services at Mukono branch, use the NSSF Go app or the USSD service *254#. The notice read in part. Genesis Namale, Select News.
Now, on the 31st March 2020, the Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Mr. Matia Kasaija, tabled the tax amendment bill. Now, this was passed to Parliament and later assented by the President of Uganda. Some of the bills that were passed were the income tax bill, the value-added tax, the excise duty, and stamp duty. Today in studio, we have Mr. Jemba from Kasita, and we want to know exactly how people understand this bill and how it is affecting the small businesses in this COVID era, especially.
Layman, yes. Especially in business, our major focus is looking at exactly how it is going to improve, one, on the side of government and tax body, to improve on compliance on income tax and other related taxes. However, to the layman, we feel like it's a ploy by government to add more taxes to the already exhausted bodies of the taxpayers. And this really does not come in good faith, because if anything, at least there should have been some consultation before amending this bill. And our input would have been key as Kasita and other key stakeholders in the country all have. However, the blame comes back to us because we are not demanding for accountability from government. Government is supposed to account for each and every penny collected in the form of taxes. However, many of us sit back and relax, or we move on carefree as if nothing has happened. Nevertheless, it's government business or government job to come up with accountability of how much was collected, how it was utilized, yes, and for any other plans or future plans.
For a short break, and then we'll be back with Elijah and Latifa.
We shall be going for a break, definitely. But Latifa, I just wanted us to have a short conversation just before we go for that break regarding the taxation scheme for Uganda, particularly in terms of businesses, because we've seen many business owners and operators cry foul of taxation on different levels, be it excise duty, be it on different levels. And these businesses think that their taxes, the taxes that are being collected from them, of course, they're taken to the consolidated fund, but still they're not satisfied on how these taxes are being utilized, whether they should be in the benefit of the traders or the business owners or not, or actually the wananchi?
When we look at the conversation of tax being collected from especially small businesses, our concern should actually be, Elijah, how is the government protecting these small businesses and how much tax is it reducing for these small businesses? Because we know Uganda for startup businesses. A lot of the business people that we have in Uganda have started businesses, but the question is, how many of those businesses survive? And what are some of the reasons that these businesses have failed to survive?
And perhaps we should have Everest Kayondo, the
definitely.
chairman,
He will answer the question, definitely.
But also we need to have a representative from the Uganda Revenue Authority to shed more light on this. I don't know what Genesis thinks on this particular issue, because if you look deep into it, Uganda Revenue Authority will tell you that for any business to survive, it is very important that they follow to the dot their documentation and abiding to the law of paying taxes.
Yeah, actually, on the conversation I had with Mr. Jemba this evening, Elijah, I was curious about how the business fraternity is handling the tax amended bill, and it is definitely negative. In their perspective, they actually think this is a slope by the government to get more money out of them, because they're getting a lot of money out of them that is not actually benefiting their businesses. He actually went ahead and said that the businesses don't even celebrate an anniversary, because when a Ugandan opens up a business, it does not even make a year, and it is completely gone. So these taxes are definitely affecting the businesses, especially the small businesses, in all the negative angles you can
Genesis, from your perspective, what do you think the business persons should do right now to both satisfy the needs and their obligations as far as tax payment is concerned, but also ensure continuity of running their businesses?
Elijah, that is a very good question. For a businessman right now to be focusing on pleasing the government of Uganda and as well as running his business smoothly, you just have to abide. Because right now, if you do not, it gets quite complicated ahead of you. Because right now, if you do not have all the business taxes, the taxes paid up, now when URA comes and audits, you actually pay more than you could have paid if you were having all your taxes on point, paid and fully paid. So what would you do for you to be able to actually run your business smoothly and at the same time earn from it? You just have no way. The question is right now, how are businesses in Uganda? What is the future of the business sector in Uganda? That is quite tricky.
Thank you, Genesis.
Well, that's a very important question from Genesis as we look into the survival of startup businesses in Uganda. On that note, let's go for a break and we'll be right back.
Absolutely.
Watching STV, select for fun.
Yes, we do appreciate your commitment to keeping it STV, particularly Select News. And thank you for riding all the way through with us throughout the bulletin, all the segments that we've covered. And absolutely, tomorrow you stand by. We shall be giving you details in the world of sports and what is transpiring there. Latifa, today being our maiden bulletin, what do you think it makes of both Uganda? What do we have in stock? What we want us to discuss for the media fraternity as journalists here on ACE-TV? What does it mean for us?
I have always said that this time during the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2021 general elections coming up, it is a very, very critical time for journalists to come up, give their opinions, give their views, and give the rightful story to people who are watching out there. And this is what me and you are doing in the studios, and that is what we will continue doing as we give them the updated news of what is happening.
As a passionate journalist, I do hold various conversations with experienced journalists, veteran journalists, discussing quite a number of issues, a range of them ranging from logistics, experience,
Definitely.
acquiring skills, and all that. Do you think Uganda's journalism still holds to the principles and objectives, putting qualities in consideration?
Well, Ugandan journalism is growing. It's like a baby that is at its walking stage from its crawling stage, because now we have moved from the crawling stage to the walking stage. And Ugandan journalism is growing to the point that before we know it, we will be accredited worldwide. And that's where we're going
Absolutely.
to.
Now, you stand by come 2021, but all through the campaigns, we shall be giving you the details that you need.
Very well.
All the current affairs, be political, social, or economic. Just
Yes.
keep it HTV, Select for Fun. Good night from me and my colleague.
Well, take care of yourself and know that COVID-19 is real. Don't forget to follow the SOPs like it is religiously faithful for you.
Peace out.
Hey guys, you're watching STV. Select for Fun.
At exactly